Mavadi for that beautiful music, and I hope I said your name correctly. Welcome, everyone, to we're going to open with a reading. If Stephen will let us hear the reading from our Science of Mind.
The title of today from the Science of Mind magazine is No Other Self. I think that's close enough. How fathomless the mystery of life is, by Guy de Maupassant. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Within myself is that which is perfect, that which is complete, and that which is divine, that which was never born and cannot die, that which lives, which is God, the eternal reality. Within myself is peace, poise, power, wholeness, and happiness. All the power that there is and all the life there is God, the living Spirit Almighty. And this divine and living Spirit is within me. It is wholeness. It is never weary. It is never tired. It is life. It is complete peace. It is never afraid. It is never confused. It is always poised, and peaceful. It is always in a state of perfect equilibrium. This is the truth about myself. There is no other self. Every image of fear is erased from my mind. Every sense of confusion leaves my thought. My mind now entertains and reflects the divine into everything I do, say, and think, into my body, into my affairs. That divine within me is wholeness, and my mind reflects this wholeness into every organ, every function, every action, every reaction of my physical being, renewing it after the perfect pattern, the Christ within me. Universal substance reflects itself into my mind, into daily supply. Everything I need each day is supplied. Before the need is the thing, and with the apparent need, it is met. There is something within me which goes before me and prepares the way wherever I go, making straight the way, in immediate and instant and permanent and harmonious every situation. Consequently, my mind reflects the fullness of that divine substance which heals every sense of lack in my life. Peace, poise, power, perfection, living spirit within me is myself. And the affirmation, I'll read it first, and you can repeat it after me. I know in the house of experience in which I live, the host is God, and all people are guests. Maybe we'll read it all in one sentence this time. You can read with me. I know in the house of experience in which I live, The host is God, and all people are guests.
Thank you, Stephen. Let us have a moment of silence and maybe reflect on that. I think that's an excellent concept, that we're in the house of God at all times, and all people in existence are the guests of God. Let's have a moment of silence, and then I will ring the chime. And if Mavadi wouldn't mind, we would sure appreciate another beautiful harp song.
Mother of darkness, mother of light, earth beneath the soul in flight, songs of love and love of life, guide us to our hearts. Mother of darkness, mother of light, earth beneath the soul in flight, songs of love and love of life, guide us to our hearts. Hoof and horn, all that I shall be reborn. Vine and grain, all that's cut shall rise again. Hoof and horn, all that I shall be reborn. Vine and grain, all that's cut shall rise again. We'll come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We'll come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We'll come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We'll come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean.
so much. We do our sign language applause. And good morning, everyone. We're very thankful we can all be here today. This is the second time we've been able to have in-person services since we started getting blasted by the Delta variant. And thank you for wearing your face mask. We're leaving them on while we are here. The ones up in the front, we take it off only when we are singing or speaking, and we're staying a good distance from everyone else. We are grateful that the spike in COVID numbers have been decreasing, but it's still, we have a lot of active cases on the Big Island, and it's still in the hundreds. So we are doing our best, as the reading stated, that we are in, everyone is a guest here, and we're trying to treat everyone in that manner. Could we have another song? Thank you so much. At this time, we invite anyone who would like to come up and leave their mask on as they're talking. We have a microphone set up to give us information about a miracle or an ordinary that's happening in their life. So I'm inviting everybody to come up and share. And don't everybody rush. Thank you, Pasha.
My husband Rob and I had a interesting experience this past week. We were guests at a memorial luncheon for our longtime neighbor, Tatsuo Takahashi, and he died in May at the age of 95. He was the last member of his family that was still living on the Big Island, but the history of the family goes back more than 100 years in Kona. They were some of the pioneers of the coffee industry, and because so there was a large number of relatives, but almost everyone came from the mainland. He didn't a lot of cousins and multiple generations, and the only one left from his generation was his younger brother that we were by good luck seated near him, and he also lives on the mainland. So at the end of the lunch, the niece who had been our main connection since Tatsuo passed away, she said, well, I have a couple of boxes for you to convey to the historical society. And so they went home with us, and I just started to look through them, and there's a couple of kimonos and a lot of photographs, mainly, pictures of people I don't know, from the, 20s and the succeeding decades. But among those, I discovered some gems that were Tatsuo's yearbooks from Konawaina High School during the time of the Second World War, from 1941 to 1944. And they were amazingly well done yearbooks. I mean, you really got the feeling of that era and those people. And, most of the young people, the majority of the names were either Japanese or Hawaiian, the few Europeans names thrown in here and there, but mainly Japanese and Hawaiian. And there was one section called student literature. That was the part that I found the most moving, because you could hear the voices of these young people, most of whom are now in their graves, right? But just the idealism, the patriotism, especially the Japanese Americans, that they were just so thrilled when finally their young men were allowed to go and fight for their country, the country they were born in. Maybe not their parents or their grandparents, but just we're living in such a era of divisiveness now. It was just sort of refreshing to remember that age, when, I don't know, it's like the love of country was a simpler matter. and I believe that just now, as New Thought is celebrating its 5th anniversary, I believe I read that Konawaina High School is celebrating its 100th. And it was the only high school in Kona until I think the 1990s, because I know when our older daughter Laura was in high school, and she graduated in 87, it was still the only high school. So all the young people of Kona came together there and, shared that experience. And so, wow, it's like we're at 50, Kona Wine is at 100, and, go Wildcats.
I know that I'm sure we do have some more ordinaries and miracles. We appreciate Pasha with that information. That was fantastic. Well, I guess I'll share just. I got Dune yesterday. I was so thrilled and excited. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that, but my daughter knew how important it was to me. And it really made me think about the situation involved. Frank Hebert wrote that in the 60s after our country destabilized Iran for their oil. And what the reading says this morning, that we are living in God's house and everyone is a guest. How many times, if I'd say to myself, oh, isn't that just awful? People mistreating the Arabs. I was driving at that time. I was thankful that I had a car. I didn't even, as a teenager. And how many times do I need to look at my actions? Well, if I need something or I want something and it's important to me, I have done similar things. Well, I don't need to consider these people, the desert people. They're just living their life. They're not good like we are. How many times have I done that? And I'm so thankful that we have brilliant people who can recognize what we have done. And I think that we're looking at that even more now. I don't know in the 60s and 70s if we were able to question ourselves as much as we're questioning. And with the pandemic, we're having to be so conscious of other people, of how do I keep the safety of someone who doesn't have an immune system or a child that's under 5? How do I make sure that I'm keeping that person safe? What do I need to do in my life? And people are struggling. They're saying the kids are having emotional issues, and I know it's gotten me depressed. So when there is the stress that's coming from a situation that we have now, I think this is the time for us to look at ourselves. And I hear other people doing that. How can I be of service? How can I make my life better than it was in the past? Because there are times that I know I have failed miserably in the way that I have approached other people. So I was really excited. The movie is fantastic. So thank you. We still have time. So now we get to hear our speaker, Shelly Pierson, and she has been here before, and I was so excited. Last year, we weren't having in-person services, so she wasn't able to be a part of the church, but she's also going to be giving a seminar, and I got to go to her seminar last time. This is Past Life Regression. I had read Dr. Brian Weiss's book, which I would have never, ever in my life thought about that. And I know, again, years ago, we didn't look at that at all. But now I think more research has been done and more work in this area. Shelly was able to get her training at the Raven Heart Center in Colorado with Dr. Linda Backman. She does past life regression. She works with individuals, and like I mentioned, that does have the seminar for a group that would like to participate. she's found that we are involved in our life of today with what has happened in previous lives. And Dr. Weiss said that the Bible at one time had the information that we did have past lives. And then I think that it was Constantine that decided that, from what I understand of it, I'm not that knowledgeable, but they felt when the Nicaea was done in 300 AD that people would do more if the priest told them you're going to go to hell if you're not good. But if you thought you had another life to go to, you'd say, well, I won't be good this time, but I can be good next time. So that was a matter of getting people to do what they're supposed to do. But it has gone beyond that now. Shelly is working with people, her clients, in interlife times. From what I understand, the little that I know, we are the spirits. We're trying to learn as much as we can in this life, and then after we pass and before our next life, there's an intermittent time, and our spirit guides try to help us and tap us on the shoulder and say, you remember when you were acting that certain way? No, you don't do that. Okay, now next life. So she helps people get in touch with the spirit guides. And then she's also involved she's found clients that are interplanetary, what she calls IP. So she can explain that better also. She is working on a book that is now in the editing phase, so we're closer to publication. So she may want to mention that. I think you expressed things that different situations that you've had with your clients. So I really am anxious to hear her speak, and I think maybe she'll let us ask a few questions afterwards. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you, and aloha. And good morning, and thank you for inviting me back to the New Thought Center of Hawaii. It's a pleasure to be back in this beautiful lanai. I always say this is the best view ever, to look straight at the ocean and all of you, the bright, shiny faces. And as Margie said, my name is Shelly Pierson. I'm a past life and a between life regression therapist, formally trained, been doing this at least 7 years, hundreds of clients. I've learned a lot. I learned so much from each of my clients. And we did intend to do a workshop following, but because of world conditions and COVID, I do have a sign-up sheet on the side table that if you are interested in a future workshop with me, please put your name and contact information. If you're listening in, you could probably email Pasha or anyone on the board, and they can put your name on the list. And I will keep all of you informed as to the progress of an upcoming workshop. I would love to do an in-person workshop. They're fascinating. So I spoke here about 3 years ago, and at that time I discussed the purpose of having challenges in our lives and how at our soul level, we actually choose those challenges in our life. Hard to believe, but there is a purpose for it. And today I want to talk about how our soul evolution is determined by our free will, and how our free will not only impacts our present lives, but also impacts our future life trajectory based on what we do in this lifetime. So I'd like to start with a little background about myself. I was raised in a fundamentalist religion, one that I did not particularly resonate with, and I think most people at New Thought Centers come from the same background. And for that reason, I pretty much stayed away from organized religion in any form. It just didn't feel comfortable to me. And then when I was in my 40s, I was nicely introduced to New Thought spirituality by my then boyfriend, who is now my husband, Glenn, who's sitting in the back. And since then, we have attended Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living communities in places that we visit, as well as places that we live. We do live part-time here on the island on the other side, close to Volcanoes National Park. We're snowbirds. We just arrived about a week and a half ago. We'll spend our 5 or 6 months here, and then we'll go back to Reno, where our children and 2 young grandboys live. And I am sorry to hear that Nigel has moved, but I was looking forward to seeing him. He's the one that introduced me to this center a few years ago, and he spoke at our CSL of East Hawaii, where we attend. So, how I got to where I am, I was formally trained and educated in computer science, and I had a very profitable 30-plus year career in information technology. But a life-changing event happened about 12 years ago when my youngest brother, at the age of 30, took his life with suicide. And all of us know that trauma in our lives often change our life path. They often take us to a point of surrender, where we finally realize that not everything can be in our hands and control. We just need to let go and let God. As a result of his death, I realized that opportunities were coming in front of me, and I finally started paying attention. And to make a long story short, after hearing guest speakers, being introduced to readings, learning about past life regression, the doors in front of me were leading me to this path where I am now a formally trained past life and between life regression therapist, and I help my clients, I help people heal the present by visiting the past. And it's something that I truly love doing. And the book I'm writing is actually going to be a beginner guide on past life regression because so many people are interested in it and want to learn more. And what I've learned through my training, my research, and mostly by my clients is that I have what I call my foundational concepts. And there are 12 of them that I'd like to start today's talk with to just lay the foundation for what I'm going to talk about at the latter portion of this talk. So here are 12 foundational concepts. And I'll go through them rather quickly. And just know that if any of you here or listening in have questions afterwards, you can please contact me through my website, and I'm happy to address any questions you have. So number 1, our souls are eternal, and we're having a human experience. 2, our souls are on a quest to evolve. 3, we must have human experiences in this earth realm in order for our souls to evolve. We learn things in this earth realm that we cannot learn anywhere else. 4, we each have a spirit guide who is assigned to us when our soul is created, and that spirit guide is always with us. Whether we're incarnated or in the soul realm, our spirit guide is always with us. Spirit guides are very special because they themselves are advanced souls who have done all their earth incarnations and learned all their lessons. Therefore, they are very skilled at helping us on our journeys. 5, each lifetime we have an intended lesson or purpose to work on in this lifetime. Now, I'm going to share some examples of what lessons might be, and it's a very short list. But some examples might be learning patience, tolerance, self-love, compassion, humility, maybe learning independence or how to stand up for ourselves. And a big one, learning forgiveness. Number 6, we never take on a lesson that we aren't ready for at the soul level. So even though your challenges may be tough in this lifetime, I guarantee your soul is prepared to take it on. Number 7, we at the soul level not only choose our life lesson we're going to work on, we also script in the major challenges in that upcoming lifetime to help us work on that lesson. So think about it. If you choose a lesson to work on, such as overcoming abandonment, at the soul level, you're going to need some life challenges in that lifetime to help you learn to overcome abandonment. Number 8, as humans, we have an attribute called free will. And our free will allows us to choose whether we want to work on our lessons or whether we don't want to. We do have that option. Number 9, if we don't always complete a lesson in a lifetime, and it's very common, if we don't finish a lesson, we get what I call a do-over. We get to do it again. It's simply another opportunity to work on the lesson again. Number 10, and this is important, a do-over is never punishment or retribution for not finishing a lesson. Again, it's simply another opportunity to work on it again. It's very feasible and acceptable that it could take us 5 lifetimes to complete a certain lesson. Number 11, as our souls evolve, the lessons become more difficult. It's interesting, in one of my workshops, a lady raised her hand and said, well, as our souls evolve, wouldn't the lessons become easier? And I said, no. Actually, they become more difficult because if you use the kindergarten through 12th grade analogy, your classes don't become easier. As you become smarter and more skilled, your classes become more difficult, right? It's the same at the soul level. And number 12, when our souls have learned all the earth lessons that we need to here, we don't need to incarnate on this earth anymore. We can go on and do work in the soul realm and we can move on. And I do want to say that Margie mentioned Interplanetary Souls, and given time at the end of the talk, I will dip into that. It's a very fascinating topic, especially for this island. Now, I'll expand on a few of the points that I just mentioned, starting with about number 5, and that is choosing our life lesson. And for today, I'm going to start off with the example of learning forgiveness. If I choose forgiveness to be a lesson my soul is going to work on, I'm going to need certain challenges or situations in an upcoming life to work on forgiveness, right? And I believe that that's something that all of us in our daily lives just need to work on because things always happen, even if it's the person cutting you off in the freeway in front of you, right? Forgiving and moving on. Now, at the soul level, if we choose the life lesson, we write in the challenges to script that life. It sounds like it should just be ready, easy, go. But it's not, because I'm going to go back to point number 8, and that is the attribute of free will. We can choose whether we want to work on the lesson or not. Now, free will, if we work on forgiveness, we can choose to face the challenges, or we can choose to be a victim and to blame others, put our head in the sand, walk away from those challenges. The list goes on, and I'm sure many of you know victims in your life, people who've chosen to not face the challenges. They just want to turn away and blame others. Well, I will say that choosing to be a victim never helps us on our life path. So how can free will impact our present life as well as our future trajectory? And that's what I'm here to talk about today. And I have some examples that I'll be sharing with you, not only of a client of mine, but also some examples from Dr. Brian Weiss. I have a client from a few years ago, and her name is Sophia, and she's given me permission to share her story, and she is also written up in my upcoming book. Now, Sophia came to me about 4 years ago. She was married about 25 years at that time, had 5 children, and she told me that her youngest child at the age of 13 had died in a car accident. Her name was Alyssa. And 3 years prior to that, Alyssa encountered a sexual molestation by her uncle, my own client's grown brother. And you can just imagine how challenging that is to have a child violated like that. Interestingly enough, the young child at the age of 10, Alyssa, forgave her uncle for that travesty. But my friend, my client, Sophia, the mother, that was not able to forgive her own brother for what he did. And then to make it worse, 3 years later, Sophia's daughter died in a car accident. So you can imagine why this lady came to me. She needed some help. And when we went to a past life, she entered a scene as a 17-year-old. And in that scene, she expressed that she was in physical pain and very traumatized. And as I asked more questions, we realized that as a 17-year-old girl in that lifetime, she had just been raped. So as we progress through the scenes, the next scene I take her to, she is in a kitchen surrounded by her family, and there's a toddler sitting at the table, and everyone is happy and loving. And I asked my client, is that toddler the result of that violation, that rape? And she said yes. So as we proceeded through that past life, visiting it, the family and she loved that child, raised that child. But at the end of that lifetime, when we invited her spirit guide forward, we learned that she never forgave the rapist. Interesting that she realized by not forgiving, she carried that lesson of forgiveness to her current life today. And as you can see, it's a do-over. But the situations change, the faces change, circumstances. So by not finishing the lesson of forgiveness in that lifetime, her soul brought it forward again. But this time, an advanced soul in her group chose at the soul level to come in and play her daughter and go through the situation to help her, Sophia's soul, continue working on this lesson. By learning this, Sophia, it just opened up her world with knowledge and awareness as to what she needs to work on in her current life. You can imagine what a hard pill to swallow that is, right? During that session, I invited her deceased daughter's soul to come forward. And I don't often advertise this because it doesn't always happen. But in this case, her daughter's soul came forward and spoke to her and told Sophia she's fine, that she is an advanced soul and she chose this path as a gift to help her own mother in this lifetime work on her lesson. What a huge gift that was. And I can attest to today, knowing Sophia as I've become good friends with her, that she has just opened up, exploded spiritually, working on her path to learn forgiveness, to forgive her brother, because she wants to finish it this time. She doesn't want to do a do-over on this, right? None of us would. So thank you, Sophia, for letting me share your story. And it's very close to my heart, as you can tell. So you can see how a past life is affecting someone's current life today by not finishing a lesson. And again, it's not punishment. It's not retribution. We at the soul level, when we're at the soul level, when we're not incarnated, we don't have ego and pride clouding our thoughts and our love and our minds. We are pure love and compassion. So I'm going to segue a bit and explain some of the founders of past life regression. So back in the 70s and 80s, there were some key people. There was Dr. Brian Weiss, who I have a book from him today, Dr. Michael Newton, and there's Dolores Cannon. I don't know if any of you read any of their books, but between the three of them, they've got probably over 40, 45 books combined. I am of the Dr. Michael Newton training lineage, but Dr. Brian Weiss is very important, and they started writing books in the 80s. And at some point in a few minutes, I'm going to quote a story from Dr. Brian Weiss. Of those three, two have passed on, but Dr. Brian Weiss is still working. He's a well-known psychiatrist, and he has a training center for past life regression, and his daughter is working with him as well. But he's written, I think, about 12 books. He's a fascinating writer. And the reason I want to talk about Dr. Weiss is I'm going to borrow one of his stories about not only past life regression, but he has now ventured into progression therapy, taking people to future lives to see how their current life today is impacting the trajectory for future lives. And that's fascinating to me. I've not done it yet, but I am tempted to venture into that. But in one of Dr. Brian Weiss's books, he talks about a client named Eva. Eva came to him as a psychiatrist needing psychiatric help because as a woman in her early 30s, a practicing attorney, she had so much anger and rage inside of her. This is right after 9/11 happened. And she had come to a point where she hated Muslims so strongly because of 9/11, it was hard for her to sleep and to work. So she sought the help of Dr. Brian Weiss. And after several sessions, and I will say with Dr. Weiss, because he is a psychiatrist, he doesn't automatically jump to past life regressions with every client. You know, he uses his traditional psychiatrist work as well. But after a few sessions with Eva, he decided it might, because they weren't making progress, he decided it might be worthwhile to check a past life. And she agreed. So he regressed her. And interestingly enough, she regressed to a life where she was a man in the 1940s in Germany. He was a Nazi soldier working for Hitler. And as that man, he hated Jewish people. He despised them. He took joy in watching them walk to their deaths. And I'm not going to go into more detail with that. It was interesting as he progressed Eva in that lifetime as a man who hated Jewish people, she realized, and he realized, that she came back this incarnation as a Jewish person. Right? Interesting. So then in another session, they still tried to work on her compassion and anger issues. He finally recommended a progression therapy session to take her into the future. And interestingly enough, she visited a future life where she was born a Muslim. See the trend here? By seeing that past life and seeing the future life and the trajectory, she realized that she really needed to work on her hatred of a group of people based on a few bad people. And fortunately, that client ended up making progress. But you can see the tie here, the link, how what we do today can impact our future trajectory. So the next story I'd like to share, and this is straight out of Dr. Brian Weiss's book, Same Soul, Many Bodies, where he talks about progression therapy. He talks about a client named John who comes to him. John is 61 years old, extremely wealthy, born into money, inherited all of his parents' wealth, trust fund baby, married to a beautiful woman for 26 years, but admits he can't sleep, he's not happy, he's not even smart enough to run any of the foundations that his money is set up to sponsor. And he's very disillusioned in life. Even though he's been married a long time, he says, both of us lost interest quickly. With us, it's more of a business arrangements. We're in the business of making money. Sad way to live. So Dr. Weiss goes on and decides after a while to take John to a past life. And in a past life, it's in London about the time of the Great Fire. And he says, John is a wealthy merchant in that lifetime who neglected his wife and their 2 children in favor of countless affairs, which is very similar to his current life. His wife had left him, preferring to go penniless rather than stay with him, and she had taken the children with her. Well, in that lifetime, John, as the wealthy merchant, dies in a fire, the Great London Fire. And at the end of that life, he sees visions of his cruelty and how that ignited him impulses of compassion and charity. John had to see not only the link of that past life to his current life, but how it could become a reoccurring pattern. And as Dr. Weiss said, it did ignite John with impulses of compassion and charity. And as a result, in his current life, he stopped womanizing, he tried to heal the rift with his wife, and he took courses in economics and management, expecting one day to take over running the foundations. In Dr. Weiss's words, compassion is energizing. And as he continued to work on his current life, Dr. Weiss eventually had a progression therapy session with John. And he said, John moved ahead in time. He was quickly approached by two wise spiritual beings who led him to a fork in a road. The forks indicated the way of two future lifetimes. And John telepathically heard from the wise men that one of the divergent paths, the one to the left, was the route he would have taken if he had not chosen to work on compassion, charity, and generosity in his current life. The path to the right would be the results of him making the changes in his current life. So Dr. Weiss decided to guide him to the path on the left just to see what it would be. And John proceeds and says, I'm a woman named Diana. It's about 100 years in the future. And I'm carrying a baby girl home. I'm unhappily married to a hovercraft pilot who has long since stopped loving me and takes his sexual satisfaction from other women. So the baby is not his. She had adopted this baby. John, as this woman, proceeds to say, I thought my daughter would be a joy to me, but she turned out to be as cold and cruel as my husband. I lived to be more than 100 years old, yet each day was a burden, a time of sadness. Death was a relief. I was alone when I died, and I was alone throughout my life. John immediately understood how the woman in the London lifetime and his current wife felt because now he was in her shoes, right? So then Dr. Weiss took John back to that fork in the road and showed him the path to the right. And he said, I'm the president of a prestigious university in what had been America before all national boundaries disappeared. I'm immensely rich, but I live simply with my wife and 3 children in a house on campus. I use my money for scholarships, attracting the most talented people in the arts and sciences to the university. I love working with them. So by sharing that story, I just want us to understand how the forks in the road that we have today in our current lives will determine the trajectory that we can eventually go to in the future. The hard part is, how do we know what our lessons are this time? So to help you out, and you may want to do this exercise later on at home, but try to think about the reoccurring patterns in your current lifetime. Have you always attracted the same negative people into your life? Do you have the reoccurring health challenges or financial challenges? Oftentimes it takes meditation, it takes being quiet, it takes asking your spirit guides for help and guidance to bring your lessons forward so you can see them more clearly. Sometimes we need a little thump on the head to wake us up. Sometimes people know it pretty clearly. It depends on how in touch you are with your spirituality, talking to your guides. As I've said, they're always there. Sometimes we figure we need to see them physically to know that they're there, but if we get quiet, we can often listen to them. So I want you to consider recurring challenges in your life to maybe think of what lesson that might be pointing you towards, what you're to work on. Do any of the following themes show up, like continually having to forgive people, continually being abandoned? Do you not love yourself enough? Do you not see yourself as worthy? Those are things you need to work on. And as I mentioned, a do-over is never punishment. As our souls evolve, our lessons become more difficult, and it can take 2, 5, sometimes 10 lifetimes to complete a lesson, but they're worth it. So I'd like to conclude with a few lasting thoughts, and that is, you are never alone on this planet. You're never alone in this life. Your guides are always with you. I actually had a client one time, and in her session, when her soul guide, her spirit guide came forward, she asked him, "Why have you left me in times of need?" And his response to her was, "I was always by your side, but you blocked me." Pretty interesting. Our guides are always loving, always accepting us. They never judge us. They never judge us. We are the ones that judge ourselves. But your guides cannot make your challenges that you wrote into your plan go away. They're always here to help, offer guidance. And the most common answer I get for my clients when I ask, how can my clients get in touch with you? The number one answer is, just ask. I'm always here. The second answer is meditate. When you're quiet and still is when you can hear me. And the third most common one is go out into nature, where nature is perfect and it's quiet and still, and connect with me. Those are the three most common ways you can connect with your spirit guides. And I want to leave you with this. A common response my clients receive and what they should do more of in their lifetime going forward is, don't take life so seriously. Lighten up and have some fun. It doesn't have to be all serious business, right? So I think I have a couple minutes left. But I'd just like to talk about what Margie mentioned. And I want to bring it up, especially on this island. There are two types of souls. There are interplanetary souls and there are earth-based souls. An earth-based soul is a soul who spent all or most of their incarnations on Earth. Personally, I'm an earth-based soul. I feel very connected to this earth. No issues, no allergies. I'm just very connected here. Interplanetary souls are souls who have spent most of their incarnations elsewhere. Another planet, another star, another galaxy. And interplanetary souls come from advanced civilizations. And they have been coming to Earth and incarnating here for eons because they are the light workers here to help teach humanity and lift our vibration, lift our frequency, move us forward towards ascension. And they're coming here in higher and higher numbers to help us out. They come from civilizations that not always are in physical form. So some of the common attributes of an interplanetary soul, and I've heard this many times from my clients. Number one, I have a hard time feeling connected with my body. Second one is sometimes they have a lot of allergies to everything on this planet. They're very sensitive to the chemicals and the toxins in our air, the food, the water. Number three, they connect more with the constellations than with people at a party. They'd rather stare at the stars and go be at a birthday party and eat birthday cake. But I talk about it because I find that a majority of my clients here on this island are interplanetary souls. This island attracts them. It's a draw for interplanetary souls. So if you ever felt that you never belonged here, you just don't fit in with humanity, there's a good sign that you're an interplanetary soul. They come with gifts to share. Every interplanetary soul comes with a gift from their home planet to share. But oftentimes they're so blocked with the challenges of being in this earth dimension that they can't get beyond the blocks to get to their gifts. So it's very enlightening to learn why they feel the way they do. And so oftentimes when they come to a workshop and learn, that's why I don't feel like I belong here, it's like permission to feel that way, that they're interplanetary, they're here with their gifts, whether it's music, art, being a light worker, sharing their love and compassion. So when you meet some of the freestyle people around the island, there's a good chance they're an interplanetary soul. And we talk about that in my workshops. So thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if you wouldn't mind, would you be willing to take some questions?
Oh, I am happy to.
So
Thank you.
if somebody has a question, I'm going to repeat it so the people that are viewing this at home can hear the question also.
Thank you. Happy to answer questions. And I guarantee there's no silly question, I promise. Even if you want to share similar experiences, it's fine.
I do have a question. And I have to laugh. I'm glad you said we don't need to be so serious because I'm laughing at myself. But I'm aggravated that I'm having more difficult lessons now because as an older person, I tell people, well, I shouldn't have to do that anymore. You know, you're supposed to just finish with that. So when you said this, I made the decision, oh, I don't have to do it. I have free will. So now I can just sit around and eat bonbons and put my feet up and say, I ain't going to do no more of this.
But just remember, it'll come back around if you didn't finish your lesson.
Okay. That's I have to remember that. So, but it just, it did hit me, the free will. And I think that's really good to understand because I've known people that were so talented and they just did not want to have any part of being a part of society and working. And so, my impulse is to hit them over the top of the head and say, you can't act like that. But that's free will. And I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, and there are many light workers whose aim to be here on this earth is simply to love the earth, to bless it, to give it energy, to recover from what we've been doing to earth.
Can you give us any information about whether we're going to be able to protect the earth in the future? Are we headed in the right direction?
Well, interesting, unfortunately with Hollywood and many of the movies, we get so many of the doom and gloom that we're heading towards apocalypse. But I'm also a follower of Cryon and his channelings and many other spiritual entities that get channeled. And the earth passed a major marker in 2012. It was also the end of the Mayan calendar. But there was enough vibrational lift in the earth that we passed an important marker to where we're not heading towards Armageddon, that we are healing or heading towards healing. And as that client of Dr. Weiss's said, in that one future life, there was beauty. The planet becomes lush and green again. So we can choose free will. What do we want to believe in? Do we want to grasp on to the naysayers that we're headed downhill, or do we want to put our energy towards life and healing and love and compassion? Every bit of our work matters. Don't feel that it gets pushed under the rug. It all matters.
So do you feel that the pandemic has been something that has challenged us to push us in a better direction?
There's a reason for everything. So with regard to the pandemic, and there's no magic answer I've heard yet as to why it's here, but I will say, because I've seen many such gifted light workers that all of a sudden pass away. You look at Hank Wesselman and he passed away. But I've heard and learned since then that many of those people who pass away come back incarnated right away because they want to continue their good work. And they're just going to step back in and pick up where they left off. And if I look at all the people that have passed away from COVID, our especially the elderly who are just impacted so severely. I'm hoping that they're coming back right away because they're going to pick up where they left off and help elevate us. There's a reason for everything, but all the time that we're secluded and alone, put that to good use. You know, so many classes you can take online, you can read your books, you can do your walks, you can, yes, it's hard. For some people, it's been depressing to be secluded, but try to find something that helps you heal, that helps bring comfort to you. I even like the ability of doing classes on Zoom now, because if I can't afford to fly to New York for a class, I can do it on Zoom for a fraction of the price, and I've taken advantage of that. It's been a blessing.
Yes.
So I hope that
yes.
helps.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because this is a time that I've heard a lot of different speakers and philosophy, people who are working on our emotions, to state that this is a time that we do need to use it in a positive way. And I appreciate how you're putting it, that not to look at it as, oh my God, but okay, this is a challenge more. I hadn't really thought about it that way, that it's challenges and life experiences. And what you're saying is it's not a punishment,
right,
but it's a way to progress.
And again, it's free will how you want to look at it, right?
And I have to still
Yes.
work on it.
I agree, it has challenges.
And Pasha, would you have a question?
Yes, I met you, Shelly, at a Hank Wesselman workshop, and I'm wondering, how did you integrate his view? How did you see what you learned from him working with your regression studies?
Pasha's asking about your attending Dr. Westman's workshop, and she would like to have you let us know what is important that you got from Dr. Wesselman into incorporating it into your regression work.
So with regard to with Hank Wesselman, Dr. Wesselman, I had heard of him on the mainland because I live in Reno, and part of his first book in the future was in the area of Reno and the Big Island. So part of my spirituality and my continual learning is I'm open to different paths. And because of reading his book and then learning he was in the island, I just kept seeing those synchronicities as I wanted to learn what he had to offer. I did not want to become a shaman, but I wanted to be exposed to his teachings and his belief system, because I oftentimes come in contact with clients who are interested in that, and then that allows me to mention it to them. So I'm not a one-stop shop for everyone. I like to recommend different paths that work for different people. And associated with Hank Wesselman is Sandra Ingerman. And I've read some of her work, and I've got friends now studying her. And it's interesting because through the work I do, learning about shamanism, learning that our souls are on a path, when someone is very ill and in the hospital, I don't always pray for them to come back to perfect health, because it may not be their path. I pray for them for the least pain and for their path to be experienced. Who am I to say that, you're dying of cancer, I want you healed? That's not for me to say. But it was interesting that when Hank was in the hospital, a friend of mine was taking Sandra Ingerman's class online, and she said, please pray for Hank, but don't pray for his healing. Pray for his path. And I thought, how interesting. So I hope that answered your question. I like to be exposed to different modalities, because, like I said, I'm not a one-stop shop. And I learn. I continually do that with various teachers. And I was blessed to attend 2 workshops here with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this this is wonderful, and don't we're going to do announcements now, but well, after the offertory, but don't forget about signing up for her class. If we could have a song for our offertory, and we're leaving the bowl here, and if people want to put something in the offering, we ask each person to come up single, and we're not passing the bowl around, all due to the situation we're in. Thank you so much. So I'd like to start with announcements from Shelly.
Okay. So as mentioned, the workshop that was going to be today is not going to take place today because we're just waiting for numbers to improve with COVID. So I'm taking the names and contact information of interested parties for when I do have a future workshop here. So again, there's a sign-up sheet if you're physically here, or you can contact any of the board members. Pasha, is that appropriate? Or
If they just send a message to the New Thought email, like answer the newsletter.
okay. So if you are interested, you can just respond to the email, to the New Thought email, and you will get your name and contact information on that list. And I will be corresponding when an upcoming workshop is to take place. Thank you.
Do you have a projected date for your book?
Projected date, I'm tired of saying I'm working on it, and I want to say I've published, so I'm hoping early 2022. I was hoping Nigel would be here so I could pick his brain, but I'll just work with someone else.
Oh,
So I'm
great.
hoping early 2022. It's being edited and illustrated at this time.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's exciting. Thank you. We want to let everybody know that we're continuing to have our services here in person. Next Sunday, we will be here again, but we will not be able to have our, well, it's the last Sunday of the month, so we're going to have our produce giveaway, which will be down by the parking lot. But the next Sunday is the first Sunday of the month when we have our bowl ceremony, and we're going to hold off again in November, but we're hoping in December that we're going to be able to start again with that. Next Sunday is going to be Vana Walali. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. She is working with Designing Human Destiny by the Stories We Tell, and the music will be by Mahina Saunders. Now, that's going to be Halloween Sunday, and we're inviting people to wear their Halloween colors if they'd like, or even come in costume. So we're not going to send you back home if you decide to. And that sounds like that's going to be fun. We are going to have, like I mentioned, the produce giveaway. And if you have a garden or a farm or a few fruit trees, we do invite you to contribute. And if you would like to share your produce, it would be best to come by 9:30 so that you can leave it out there for everyone. There will be some bags provided, but if you want to, you can bring your own. And that's going to happen after the service. We do need some volunteers for the 50th Jubilee planning group. We're just beginning the celebration, and this is going to continue at least until the first of the year, maybe a little after. I'm not sure what the dates are going to be lasting until. You can, we do need somebody to help recreate our Facebook page. So if anybody has that ability, we would appreciate that you're getting in touch with Pasha or one of the board members. And we need Sunday volunteers, greeters, setup, cleanup, and that type of thing. It would help us if we had somebody who could take over doing the produce giveaway. And I don't know if anybody else has anything that they need to add. If not, we're going to have a special song this morning, which I appreciate. It's called Infinity Portal. Do you want us to stand? We usually stand for our last song. Should we stand, or what's best for you? You don't mind. You don't have a preference? Or
Relax and
oh,
enjoy.
thank you. That's what we're going to do.
Sacred fire activating, through the air we are gliding, on this earth we are grounding, with the water we are flowing. Sacred fire activating, through the air we are gliding, on this earth we are grounding, with the water we are flowing. Opening and flowing, expanding and growing, loving and forgiving, giving and receiving. Opening and flowing, expanding and growing, loving and forgiving, giving and receiving. Welcome to this portal. fragrance of flowers, mystical powers. This is your time. This is your time to witness abundance sublime, divine design. To witness abundance sublime, divine design.
Thank you so much, and our service is concluded at this time.